Hi, my name is Richard. I'm 67 years old, and for most of my life I believed my home was my safe haven. But one evening, as I reached out to hug my grandchildren, my daughter-in-law blocked the doorway. Her eyes were cold, her voice sharper than any blade. "Enough! You don't belong here anymore. Get out!" Behind her I could hear the children laughing, calling for me, but I wasn't allowed to reach them. That was the day my world collapsed, and the day I decided to fight back. Before I tell you how my daughter-in-law tried to cut me out of my grandchildren's lives and how her cruel words turned into her greatest mistake, I want to ask you, what would you do if someone you loved suddenly shut you out of your own family? Let me know in the comments, and also tell me which city and country you're watching from, so I can thank you personally. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more true stories like this. I wasn't born rich, but I was born determined. I worked every day of my life, building a business from nothing, just so my family would never go hungry. For decades, my wife Elizabeth stood by my side. She was my partner in every sense, gentle, wise, and the glue that held our home together. When Elizabeth passed away 3 years ago, I felt as if someone had cut the ground from beneath me. I lost not only my wife, but also my compass. My son Michael convinced me to move into his home. "It will be better this way, Dad," he said. "The kids love having you around, and you shouldn't be alone." At first it seemed like the right decision. Their house was warm, the children's laughter filled the halls, and for a while I thought maybe my heart would heal. The children, Sophie and James, were my joy. Every evening, I told them stories about their grandmother, teaching them the values she had lived by. They listened with wide eyes, asking questions, hugging me tightly before bedtime. But not everyone welcomed my presence. My daughter-in-law, Rachel, always kept her distance. Polite smiles, short conversations, a stiffness whenever I entered the room. I noticed, but I chose to ignore it. For my son's happiness, for my grandchildren's innocence, I stayed quiet. When Rachel offered to take over family dinners and school events, I thought it was just her way of helping. I never imagined her true intentions, that one day she would turn my own home into a battlefield and use my grandchildren as weapons against me. It happened on a quiet Sunday afternoon. I was sitting on the floor with Sophie and James, building a tower of wooden blocks. Their laughter echoed through the living room, the kind of sound that softens every ache in an old man's bones. Then Rachel's heels clicked across the floor. She stood there, arms crossed, her gaze fixed on me. "Enough," she said sharply. "The children have homework, and they don't need you spoiling them with your stories." Sophie pouted. "But Mom, Grandpa's helping us." "Enough!" Rachel snapped, her voice cutting through the air like glass shattering. She marched over, pulled the children away from me and pointed at the door. "Get out of the room. In fact, get out of this house if you can't respect boundaries." My heart sank. I glanced at Michael, my son, who stood at the doorway with his head lowered, saying nothing. His silence stung more than Rachel's words. I tried to smile for the children, who looked back at me with confusion and tears brimming in their eyes. "It's okay, little ones," I whispered, though inside I felt broken. That day, the home I had sacrificed everything to build became a place where I was unwelcome. I retreated to the small room Michael had given me. I sat on the edge of the bed, my hands trembling. The laughter of the children still echoed faintly down the hall, but I was barred from it, as though someone had slammed a door between me and my own blood. I stared at a framed picture of Elizabeth on the bedside table. Her gentle smile seemed to ask me, "Richard, how long will you let them take your dignity?" Tears welled in my eyes. I'd endured loss before. Burying my wife was the deepest wound of all. But this was different. To lose access to my grandchildren, to be cast aside in the very house I had helped build. It was a living humiliation, and yet something gnawed at me. Rachel's cruelty wasn't random. There was calculation behind her words. This wasn't just dislike. It was a plan. Over the following weeks, I began to observe. Rachel spent long hours on the phone. Her voice hushed whenever I entered the room. Envelopes arrived, bills I never saw Michael open. New dresses and jewelry appeared in her closet, things my son's modest salary could not possibly cover. One evening, as I passed by their room, I heard them arguing. Michael's voice was low, tired. "Rachel, please. Dad's just trying to help." Her reply was cold, filled with venom. "Help? He's a burden. The children love him more than they love us. Don't you see? As long as he's here, we'll never have control. His money, his presence, it all overshadows us. He needs to be gone." I froze in the hallway, my heart pounding. So that was it. This wasn't just about me telling bedtime stories or spoiling the children. This was about control. Rachel wanted me erased, not just from their lives, but from the legacy I had worked for my entire life. I stumbled back into my room, my chest tight, rage and sorrow warring inside me. For days I couldn't sleep. But one truth became clear. If I did nothing, Rachel would succeed. And I could not allow that, not for myself, not for Elizabeth's memory, and certainly not for Sophie and James. That night, I vowed she might have humiliated me, but she would never destroy me. The next morning, I visited an old friend, Mr. Carter, my lawyer of many years. He was the same man who had helped me draw up my first business contracts decades ago. When I told him everything, Rachel's cruelty, the humiliation, her plan to push me out, his expression hardened. "Richard," he said firmly, "you're not powerless. You still hold the rights to your estate. If Rachel is scheming, we'll protect everything you've built." For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. With Mr. Carter's help, I created a trust in Sophie and James's names. Every property, every bank account, every remaining asset, secured beyond Rachel's reach. She could taunt, she could threaten, but she would never touch the legacy Elizabeth and I had built. I also began keeping records. Rachel had grown careless. Credit card statements, receipts, late-night phone calls. Slowly, I gathered proof of her schemes. Each page I tucked into a folder, each word recorded, was another brick in the wall I was building against her. Rachel thought she had broken me, but she had done something else entirely. She had awakened the fighter in me. The moment came sooner than I expected. Michael and Rachel hosted a dinner for relatives and neighbors. The table was lavish, the wine flowed, and Rachel, dressed in diamonds, played the perfect hostess. But beneath her smile, I saw arrogance. She believed I was beaten, that I had accepted my humiliation. As dinner plates were cleared, I stood up. The room fell silent. "Before we end this evening," I said calmly, "there are things that must be revealed." Rachel's eyes narrowed. "Richard, sit down. Don't ruin the evening." I placed a folder on the table. "These are records of debts and secret purchases made in your name, Rachel. Proof of your attempts to manipulate Michael into transferring assets." Gasps filled the room. Relatives leaned in, whispering furiously. Michael's face turned pale as he grabbed the papers, flipping through them with trembling hands. Rachel laughed nervously, trying to wave it off. "This is nonsense. He's old, confused. Am I interrupted sharply. I held up the final document. "Here is the trust, signed and sealed. Every cent of my estate now belongs to Sophie and James. You told me to get out of this house, Rachel. But tonight, it is you who must leave." The silence that followed was crushing. Rachel's face went white, her mask of charm shattered. Relatives who once admired her now looked at her with disgust. Michael stared at her as if seeing her for the first time. The room erupted into chaos. Some relatives demanded explanations, others shook their heads in disbelief. Rachel's charm, her careful image, was gone. All that remained was rage. "You can't do this," she screamed, pointing at me. You deserve nothing," I said quietly, but my voice carried through the room. "Respect is earned, not demanded. You tried to break me, Rachel. Instead, you exposed yourself." Michael buried his face in his hands. When he finally looked up, his voice cracked. "Dad, I'm sorry. I should have defended you." "I let her come between us," I nodded, my throat tight. "You are my son and I forgive you. But understand this, trust is not given freely. You'll have to earn it again." Rachel stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Neighbors and relatives whispered among themselves, their respect for her in ashes. Michael sat quietly, shame and regret weighing on him. I sank into my chair, exhausted but lighter than I had felt in months. For the first time since Elizabeth's passing, I felt I had honored her memory, not with words, but with action. I had defended our dignity, our grandchildren's future, and the love that bound us as a family. In the months that followed, life began to heal. Rachel moved out, her mask of grace forever shattered. Michael was broken with guilt, but slowly he began to repair what had been lost between us. He joined me for walks, asked for advice, and even admitted, with tears in his eyes, "Dad, I should have stood by you that day. I forgave him, not because the wound wasn't deep, but because Elizabeth would have wanted me to." She had always believed in second chances, in family mending even the deepest cracks. The grandchildren, Sophie and James, remained my joy. Their laughter filled the house once more, no longer interrupted by sharp words or slammed doors. They would run into my arms, asking for stories about their grandmother. And each time I felt Elizabeth's presence, her spirit smiling as I passed down her love and wisdom. Some nights I sat in the garden alone. The stars above reminded me of Elizabeth's gentle words, "Never let anyone take your dignity." I had nearly lost it, first to grief, then to Rachel's cruelty. But in fighting back, I found not just strength, but peace. I learned something powerful. Family isn't about who shares your blood. It's about who stands beside you with love and respect. And when someone tries to strip that away, you have every right to fight, not with anger, but with dignity. Now, I want to ask you, if your own daughter-in-law tried to keep you from your grandchildren, would you walk away quietly, or would you stand and fight for your family? Share your thoughts in the comments, and let me know which city and country you're watching from. And don't forget, like this video, subscribe and hit the bell for more true stories like this. Because sometimes the deepest betrayals can lead to the most powerful victories.